The temperature zones of the Earth are polar, temperate, and tropic. The polar zones are around the Arctic Circle at 66.5 degrees north and 66.5 degrees south. The temperate zones are below the polar zones. The tropic zones are around the equator, which is at 0 degrees latitude. The zones of the Earth helps determine essentially everything: the weather, the environment, what food grows where, who lives where, and cultures. Which brings us to the steps to civilization. The steps to civilization are the steps over time from the Paleolithic age to the Neolithic age. The steps to civilization start with simple culture, which is when the nomadic people have to follow animal herds. The second step is domestication, which is when the nomadic people start growing crops and raising animals while staying in one place. The third step is specialization. This is when the nomadic people have settled down into little tribes, cities, or groups and kingdoms. Not everyone is farming and herding like before. People are starting to specialize in other jobs, like coming up with words or equations. The last step is named civilization. This step has a criteria to be a civilization. The criteria of civilization is a government and social status.
The arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively.
Culture helps in a developing group form an identity. Also allows groups to identify one another due to the culture differences. Culture also determines borders. The definition of religion: the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, a person, god, or gods. Religion as well as culture can determine how a group views the world. Religion usually contains the morals of a group, as well as their viewpoint and reality of the spiritual world. Religion varies not only from region to region, but from culture to culture. The major four religions are Christianity, Islam, atheist, not religious, and Hinduism. There are 21 major religions in the world. Economy assists in helping a group to make means of successful living. The better the economy, the better the living environment and quality of life.
The wealth and resources of a country or region in terms of the production and consumption of goods and services. Conflict, a serious disagreement or argument. As with any great development, there will be flaws. People will fight over their religions, there will be feuds between cultures, and even simple disagreements can trigger conflict. A major part of keeping these problems at a minimum would be government control. There are multiple ways to go about governing, ranging from little involvement to ultimate control. The following are discussed from least control to the most control. Anarchy is a government where there is no governmental control. Democracy is where each and every citizen has a counted vote. Representative democracy is where citizens vote for a person that represents their idea. The representative that is chosen is the voice that will be heard. Socialism is where the government has almost total control over the economy. Taxes are higher, but things are given back to the people, like free schooling and free healthcare. A constitutional monarchy is where a monarch, like a king, makes major decisions, but is limited by a written constitution. A monarchy is where a ruler is often viewed as chosen by God and gets to make major decisions. One comes into power in a monarch by inheritance. A dictator is where one person holds absolute control on making decisions. Communism is where the government has complete control, even over jobs you can get. A need to form a government of any sort can be a reason for people to unite instead of having conflict. People have a basic requirement to establish a form of control, and in doing so, they find ways to work together and to keep a civilization standing. Other factors can push people together. An opposing force from another area may be the cause of groups creating agreements and alliances. Conflicts may be put on hold when a group needs to overcome the physical environment as well. Whether it is a rough season for farming or an unexpected natural occurrence, hard times often bring a civilization closer together. When a civilization has developed enough and worked on successful factors, they can be a more developed country, an MDC. An MDC has good economic activity and has a lower rate of population growth. A group that struggles more would be considered a less developed country, LDC. An LDC has less fruitful economy activity and more population growth. We were able to receive interviews over email with 2 people who have traveled out of the country. One person we interviewed went to South Korea. He lived in South Korea for 2 years between 1989 and 1991. We asked him how the language barrier was different. He said he had a short time to study Korean before he went there, but there is a lot of language he was not able to learn. He was able to quickly learn the language by being immersed in the day-to-day life in the country. An interesting story about a situation while speaking Korean. He said, "One time I asked a lady for directions and I was speaking Korean at the time. She kept telling me, in Korean, 'No, I don't speak English.' After about 3 times of doing this, I said, in Korean, 'Stop, listen to me, I am speaking Korean.' As soon as she took a moment to stop and listen and realize I was not speaking English, we had a great conversation." When we asked how living environments are different there from here in the United States, we got an interesting answer. We were told the houses and apartments in Korea are much smaller than here in the US, and the people have a lot less furniture. Sometimes it is just one large living space where the family pulls out sleeping mats and sleeps on the floor at night. We are told that the people in South Korea are, for the most part, very kind and welcoming. The other person we were able to interview through email has lived in Uganda. As for language barriers, English was actually the official language of Uganda due to previous British colonization. However, she informs us that it is still necessary to learn a little bit of the local language. Living environments in Uganda are traditionally, and in rural areas, Ugandans live in mud huts. In towns and cities, Ugandans live in more modern houses, often with tin roofs. Also, there is an upper class in Uganda who live in very modern homes, similar to the ones here in the US. When it comes to laws in Uganda compared to here in the US, they are about the same. However, the enforcement is less strict due to lack of funds to pay for as many law enforcement officers. She tells us that the people are very kind and very welcoming, that they would do great things for their visitors and guests. People who she just met would even call her their sister.
So it's up to you and it's up to me that we meet in the middle on our way back down to earth.